What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ben Balian, back with another episode of the Sports Pod, and in today's episode, I'm going to recap Knicks-Hawks Game 1. New York goes up 1-0 with a 113-102 victory. It's a game where the Knicks looked very connected, a gritty win, and this Hawks team is so hot right now. They caught fire after the All-Star break, so it's going to take a lot from the Knicks to win this series. I also want to get into a little bit about how the end of the year went, because I thought the Knicks could have given us more in the regular season, but I'll get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Hit it.
DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! At the wall, he jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career.
Alright, getting into the episode and starting with a little synopsis of the season, how we got here, how the Knicks earned the third seed in the Eastern Conference. Somehow, they won 53 games this year. I expected it to be a more assertive 53 or more wins. I thought the Knicks left a little bit of room to be better in the regular season, but listen, it's the first year under a new head coach. You knew it was going to take time to really work out, and I think January is where the Knicks could have been a lot better, because they had those two really bad losing streaks. However, they only finished a game under 500 for that month. They were still good even when they were at their worst. And one of the things that I think really helped them this year is that injuries weren't really a part of the story. In years past, it's been Mitchell Robinson going down, Josh Hart missing time. I know Deuce missed an extended period, but outside of one bench player that the Knicks actually had depth to replace him with this year, they were pretty injury-free. I mean, Cat and Brunson were both on the court for a good amount of games. I was happy with how often they were playing. The whole starting lineup played the majority of the season. Obviously, Mikal Bridges gave you all 82 games, but even OG Anunoby, another player who has been hampered by injuries in the past, stayed on the court for a lot of this year. So that was huge in letting these guys, and especially in a year where Mike Brown just takes over, where they need to play together to develop a different style of chemistry than they had with Tibbs, because they already worked well together. We already knew that this group had gelled. But Mike Brown needed everyone out there and everyone playing pretty much night in and night out to institute his offenses, his defensive packages, and get everyone on the same page. And I think now that we're finally gearing up for the biggest stretch of the year, everyone is on the same page. I'll talk about the offense a little bit later on in the episode, but there's one thing I think the Knicks have just unlocked, and it's going to help them so much. Maybe not as much in this first round against the Hawks, because on paper, they're just so much better than Atlanta. But as you get into teams like the Celtics, hopefully not the Pistons, I'm really hoping the Knicks can avoid Detroit, because Cade Cunningham and everyone on the Pistons has just given the Knicks so much trouble. They dominated, and it's because they want it more than the Knicks in those matchups. The Pistons come into those matchups with a chip on their shoulder, recognizing that, hey, this is a team that beat us last year in the playoffs. We've got to get back at them. But that's besides the point. I could get back into that a little bit later on. Now, getting into game one of this series, it was a real gritty win for the Knicks. It felt like they were in control the entire time. I think every time I looked down at the scoreboard, they were really maybe a point behind or winning. I don't remember a time where they went down 4 or 5, and that's even a small deficit. They were just in control of this game from the opening tip. Playing at the Garden helps behind your home fans, who, like always, were going crazy, and that's another thing. I just feel like there's not as much hype around this Knicks playoff run than there was last year or even the year before. The first year with OG Anunoby was insane, because the Knicks went on that ridiculous run from trading for OG just a couple days after Christmas to barely losing in January to everyone getting hurt throughout the rest of the regular season, and it felt like the wheels were falling off the bus. The Knicks still got to the second round, pushed the Pacers to 7 games, ended up losing, but everyone was just going crazy during that run. And then last year, People were expecting it. It was like, all right, first year with Cat. We've got OG back at full health now for this playoff run. Everyone's kind of ready to go. We got Tibbs. He's been here for 4 or 5 seasons at this point. It's all set up now. And everyone was ready to go. All the fans were out there in the Madison Square Plaza. Everything was going crazy. Everyone was on fire. But this year, because the Knicks didn't have that electric regular season and the Eastern Conference was so wide open this year, but they only ended up with the 3rd seed, it's been a little bit of a subdued reaction from the fan base. Don't get me wrong. There were still people going crazy. Trae Young, the whole thing with the Hawks, all that tension has continued to boil over. And the tension got started early last night with the CJ McCollum, Jalen Brunson little feud. McCollum calling Brunson a Broadway actor after he got kicked in the groin. And it was a technical foul on CJ McCollum. Kind of ridiculous, but that's besides the point. The Trae Young stuff is going to continue to be a storyline throughout the series, even though Trae Young isn't on the Hawks anymore. Knicks fans just hate him so much. He's the villain. And if you look at Trae Young's career record against the Knicks, it's not very good. Yeah, he had that one playoff series a while ago. But overall, Trae Young, he's like Reggie Miller. He was 7-18 against the Knicks in his career. And that's the guy Knicks fans hate. I mean, you dominated him. He talks all this game like he was a villain, like he did so much to you. And I get he beat you in a playoff series. It was the first time the Knicks were back in the playoffs in a really long time. But overall, he sucked against the Knicks. I think we can start moving on from this narrative now that he's not on the Hawks anymore. And I get he kind of played into it with rolling the dice in the in-season tournament. But it's time to move on. This is a playoff run where the Knicks are expected to just put their heads down and go to work. The first round should be cakewalk. It should be no more than 5 games. The Knicks should be moving on and then gearing up for a second round series against the Celtics, which honestly, I am less scared of the Celtics than I am of the Pistons for sure. Even the Magic worry me. I'm really happy the Hornets didn't make the playoffs because, and I know this sounds kind of crazy as the Hornets were, the 8 seed or the 9 seed coming out of the East, but the Hornets gave the Knicks a lot of trouble in the regular season, and they were just this scrappy group of guys that had a will to win. The Eastern Conference landscape is really shifting to a place where the Knicks aren't built for. In the past couple of years, it's shifted back to physical, hard-nosed teams with a lot of young guys that can just run and are Energizer bunnies. Where in years past, and what the Knicks had built their team to beat was the Boston Celtics, where they have 2 wings that can lock down on defense. That's Mikal and OG. You have Jalen Brunson, that ridiculous scoring threat. You have your stretch 5 in Cat. But now that's not really the mold anymore. The Pistons don't really have that. Everyone can play defense. A lot of guys can play offense. Versatility is a huge part of their game. And listen, if the Knicks end up pulling the straw of the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think it's a 5 or 6 game series and the Knicks are done. I don't think the Knicks really have a chance against the Pistons. And there is one way they can get back in. They can get into that series and actually have a chance at it. And I'll get into that in a little bit as well as I get towards the end of this episode. But the point I'm trying to make right now is that even the Hawks are one of these teams that are not going to just let you beat them. They're going to put up a good fight with guys like Jalen Johnson and CJ McCollum. The problem, those guys are very mid to be leading a team. I mean, McCollum being the leading scorer for the Hawks, I know Jalen Johnson's usually their top option, but those 2 guys are not good enough whatsoever to beat a Knicks team with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns as the 1-2 punch. And if that happens, I'm sorry, but serious changes have to be made because this Hawks team should not even be in the conversation. And I think the Knicks showed that last night. Like I said, they were in control from the opening tip. The thing that the Hawks have going for them is that they're crazy crazy hot. Since the All-Star break, they are 20-6. That's good for third best in the NBA. I mean, picking up a guy like Jonathan Kuminga at the trade deadline, that's not a bad addition. They've kind of caught fire, and this group works really well together, which is what I'm worried about, because when you get a lot of guys that get hot at the right time, and honestly, the Hawks might have gotten hot a little bit too early, because it's hard to carry like a ridiculous hot streak from the end of February all the way until June. That just doesn't really happen too often, where if they cool off, right now is where the Knicks need them to cool off. But if the Hawks want to make that deep run, they need to like keep this flame going for a couple more months, and it feels like that's just not realistic. All right, now getting to some more talk on the Hawks and what their roster is like and how they match up with the Knicks. Jalen Johnson always gives Jalen Brunson trouble, and this is one of the things that about Knicks Hawks. It's never a normal game. It's like Knicks Pacers, where every time they meet, something weird has to happen. It's all these teams with the players who think they're the Knicks villains, and Tyrese Halliburton is to an extent, but even Reggie Miller, and this is something I'll hit on also. In a sense, I'm happy that Amazon Prime has some of the first round games, because I don't have to listen to Reggie Miller, but NBC just does such a better job with their games. And Amazon has, like, in the play-in tournament, they had technical difficulties at the end of fourth quarter and the start of overtime. If you want to be one of the pioneer streaming services that's getting your foot in the door for broadcasting live sports, you've got to be perfect with it. I mean, I hadn't noticed it that much during the season. During the season, it was really just some choppy footage where it wasn't playing smoothly, but that you can get around. That happens to everyone. You're having technical difficulties to the point where you have to put up a graphic and pause your broadcast. That's ridiculous, and I'm sorry, but Prime does an okay job. They've got some good voices. I like NBC. They do such a good job with all their sports, and they're kind of starting to take back over. I mean, they were one of the premier networks back in the 90s. They faded to the background a little bit. They always kept control of Sunday Night Football, but now they're back in the mix with Sunday Night Baseball, Sunday Night Basketball. They've got their playoff coverage for basketball starting right now, I believe, with the Spurs game that's happening, their first Sunday night game, and then they'll take some of the weekday games. But I love NBC's coverage of really all sports. They do such a nice job. Mike Tirico, in my opinion, the best broadcaster in the game right now. But getting back to what I'm saying, Jalen Johnson and the Hawks always give the Knicks trouble. They can never just play a normal game. It's always got to be some kind of weird circumstance in the fourth quarter where the Hawks are trying to come back and the Knicks can't just put the game to bed, make a couple free throws, whatever it may be. So Johnson giving Brunson trouble is one of the things I'm worried about. But now the Knicks have finally figured out the pick and roll between Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. It only took 2 full seasons, but we finally done it. To me, it happened in that game against the Celtics, the third to last game of the regular season, where these guys were just working off each other so well. And this was the vision when Karl Anthony Towns was brought in. That dynamic duo between Brunson and Cat, two of the better pick and roll players in all the sport. But instead, Tom Thibodeau had Brunson isolating, running the offense on his own with everyone just out of the picture. The Mike Brown effect is real. An offensive-minded head coach, and I get that Karl Anthony Towns' offense took a step back somehow this year while his defense progressed. That didn't make sense to me, but now that we're in the playoffs and everything is really starting to matter, the Knicks figuring out what their offense should have been from the start is huge. That's going to allow them to beat a team like the Celtics, maybe even beat a team like the Pistons. In my opinion, for the Pistons, everyone just has to buy in on giving it 110% on the defensive side of the ball, because that defense turns into offense. OG is leaking out on the sidelines. Josh Hart gets the rebound, pass it up court. That's transition offense. The Knicks can thrive in transition offense. They have the personnel to do it. They've got to get the stops on defense. That's looking well far down the road. The Pistons wouldn't be the matchup until the Eastern Conference Finals. And honestly, I'm hoping the Cleveland Cavaliers can pull through, knock off the Pistons, because I don't trust the Cavs ever. I think the Knicks will beat the Cavs no matter what year it is, no matter when. The Knicks are beating the Cavs, in my opinion. I just don't trust them because they haven't found that big that can shoot the three. And I know I talked about the Eastern Conference landscape shifting. You still need all 5 players on the court to be able to shoot. That hasn't changed, and it will never change now that the NBA relies so heavily on the three-point shot. And the Cavs just haven't had it. I know Evan Mobley's progressed throughout his career shooting the three ball, but he's still not at a level that I'm going to trust him shooting with. Jared Allen, it's the same story. I don't think the Cavs are good enough to beat the Knicks in a 7-game series, period, stop. So I'm really hoping they can pull through. The ideal scenario, in my opinion, is Knicks-Celtics round 2. And honestly, I would rather the Knicks play the Celtics against the Sixers because the Sixers are very scrappy. They're going to be a hard team to beat. And the Knicks are built to beat the Celtics. They showed that they can beat the Celtics last year. And I don't want to hear anything about Jason Tatum getting hurt in that series because it was done. The Knicks were essentially up 3-1 when Jason Tatum went down. And everyone knows it because it hasn't been a big storyline this season. But I do think the Celtics would be the better round 2 rematch of last year's second round matchup. And then in the Eastern Conference Finals, I do think the Cavs are probably the best pull. If I'm looking at the bracket right now, you've got, the Raptors would be nice, but I doubt they get past Cleveland. As far as the play-in teams go, Orlando is a little bit risky to me. They're a team I don't want to see. And that 1-8 matchup, it's going to be interesting. Those are 2 teams I really don't want to see as a Knicks fan. And because they just don't match up well with the Knicks. And the Knicks haven't shown an ability to beat that kind of team. And I know I keep harping on this, but it's reigned true all season long. If I'm looking at the Knicks schedule right now, and I go to the season series against the Charlotte Hornets, I don't know if the Knicks won a single game. I'm trying to find. Okay, they tied the season series at 2-2. The Knicks won on November 26th and December 3rd. So before the Hornets really hit their stride, which was after the new year. So that was a bad matchup for the Knicks. If I'm looking at the Pistons next, if I can find a game against the Pistons to base it off of, I don't think the Knicks beat them this year. The Knicks really struggled against these younger teams, and the Pistons was a different situation because they absolutely had a different chip on their shoulder when it came to playing the Knicks. But in those matchups, the Knicks looked off. They looked like the little brothers. It wasn't good. In 2 matchups, the Knicks lost both of them. And it wasn't close. It was 2 games where Karl Anthony Towns really struggled. He didn't show his worth. He didn't have that impact that he typically does. And that was the big issue. And now I'm trying to find a game against Orlando to look at. And Orlando beat the Knicks twice. They won both matchups. I don't like a lot of these teams in the Eastern Conference. They make me scared. The 4 teams really, I'm 100% confident the Knicks beat. Not 100% confident with one of them. The Hawks, I'm 100% sure. The Cavs, I'm sure. The Raptors, I'm sure. And the Celtics are another team I really do think the Knicks beat. The Celtics have a little bit of a different look this year. They don't rely as heavily on Jason Tatum. They're a little bit deeper. And that's helped them out a lot, especially reintegrating Jason Tatum back in their lineup. But there's a lot of teams in the East that I'm really scared about. And then if you look at the Western Conference, I think the Knicks beat the Spurs. That's the one team that I'm really hoping can get to the finals, and this is looking way too far down the line, but let me hope. If the Knicks get the Spurs in the finals, I think they win. That's what they showed me all year, whether it's the in-season tournament, the season series, that Christmas Day game. No, that was last year, Christmas Day against the Spurs. But whatever regular season matchups the Knicks played against the Spurs, I really liked what they showed me. So if San Antonio can get to the final, and I do think it's realistic, I think the Knicks have a really good chance to win that series because the Spurs are young. They still need a couple years to really develop, and that's why I don't think they'll get there. I think the Thunder are always going to be a good option. I like the way that it's set up for the Nuggets, where they'll be facing the winner of the Spurs Blazers series, I believe. Or is it Spurs Warriors? See, I'm looking at the play-in tournament right now. No, it's Spurs Blazers. That's what I thought. Denny Avdia taking on Wemby. If the Nuggets can get past the Timberwolves, which I think they will, I think they have a good chance to get past the Spurs. And then it's going to be the Thunder. It's going to come down to Spurs Thunder. And the Spurs have seemed to have the Thunder's number throughout the regular season. So that would be my ideal scenario. You play the Celtics round 2. You play the Cavs or Raptors. Doesn't really matter to me in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then the Spurs are waiting for you in the NBA Finals. That's my ideal scenario for the Knicks to bring home the Larry O'Brien trophy. All right, that's going to do it for the episode. If you enjoyed, make sure you subscribe, comment, follow, share. I really appreciate all of it. Make sure you go check out my socials. They're linked in the description below. Also, leave me a voicemail. The Google Voice number to do so is 848-305-8073. Again, that's 848-305-8073. And last but not least, make sure you keep it locked with the Sports Pod.